I don't trust paper, I don't trust blotters, I trust on testing myself. So there are times I'll not be wearing several fragrances, and a lot of people are always asking me, what are you wearing? And my answer is always, not telling. And this name wasn't suitable for my past life, so I've been waiting all this time for a really, really cool brand to allow me to use this name.
It is the best name I've heard in ages. Sophie, how did you two meet?
So I have heard a lot of Christopher, and I was dying to work with him, and suddenly it happens. So Christopher called me, and we had a talk. We went to visit the exhibition at the Museum of Arts Décoratifs in Paris. It was the exhibition of the 80s, les années 80. And so we were very inspired, I must say. It was really all about fashion and design and all the, the big things of this year with the women, with these warriors women, the flashy colors, and all the aesthetic of the 80s. And then we started to think that we could work together. Mm-hmm. Is it true?
I'm not sure. Not telling.
No, Sophie, continue.
Is he the enfant terrible that we hear about?
Yes.
But
it's what really I love, because it's very different creating a fragrance with Christopher. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of images. Is writing, is calling, is writing some references to some movies, to some books. He sent me a nice book.
Yes, tell them.
Scruples.
So
I don't really use this vocabulary, I must say.
By Judith Krantz.
So it's a kind of immersion with Christopher. Is telling you stories that you want, and then you translate them into the fragrance. But it's really something strong with a lot of affinities and fantasy and creation.
If we just rewind a little bit on you, in terms of your career, though, there may be people in this audience that kind of don't know some of the amazing creations that or they know the creations, but they don't know that they were your work. Which are some of the fragrances that you have worked on that you are most proud of?
So it's always very difficult to choose a fragrance and the creations that we have done. So I would say the first one, it was Organza from Givenchy. So it was a long time ago. And the Emporio Armani for him. And I worked a lot for Bulgari also, Jasmin Noir, Tubereuse Mystique, and also the Italian designers such as Ferragamo, the Signorinas, and Tiffany and Love for him. I've been working for Jo Malone also, Cypress and Grapevine, and also the Snowdrop. And recently I have created the Hearse from Labbé, the Dylan Turquoise from Versace, Orum from Bulgari, it's a Gene. And the latest one is Armani Privé Noir Kogané, that was launched in Dubai.
Can we just give her a little round of applause for that, please? But Chris, the normal way of briefing a fragrance is to come up with a concept and put it out to lots of different fragrance houses, like a beauty parade, and wait for their submissions and etc. But you don't work like that, do you? And so tell us about how you work and what it was about Sophie that made you want to work with her. I mean, I think we can tell that you wanted to work with her, but you have, all the great perfumers at your fingertips. So what was it about Sophie, and did you have her in mind specifically for this kind of fragrance?
To be fair, about the classic way of working, briefing out to all the perfume houses, I used to work like that too because I didn't have much experience, you know, and I thought that is the way to do it. The more submissions you get, you know, the better you are supposed to be. So I have worked like that for many, many years. That you create a brief. The brief can be anything. The brief can be, you know, like a collage. It could be just a box of objects, or it can just be a telephone call like I do with Sophie, or it can just be like references, okay? And then you brief it out to all the perfume houses, and they send the submissions to you, okay? Now, many, many years later, I'm older and I have more experience. I feel I need to change my approach to freshen things up. First of all, I think the first approach is not sustainable. You get so many submissions, and what do you do with them? You know, I just think there's a lot of wastage. You know, obviously, some people do work like that. But that's a classic way. But now I know a lot of the perfumers. I have developed a lot of working relationships with the perfumer, and I know their style and I know their personality, because we are not just clients. We are actually friends, should I say? Now my new approach is that the people I work with have to be friends. That we must have a personal connection, and then I come up with a concept, a story. And I talk to them about it. I said, what do you think about this? Do you think you can give me add-on layers to it? And how do you interpret it? And then they give me their feedback, and a lot of the times, we actually experience that brief together. We're not going to tell, right? That's a future project. We actually experience it together. And then after the experience, we talk about it and create that brief together. So it incorporates the brand, mine and Sophie or other perfumers' personality into it. And I feel that way it becomes much more authentic and real with our true voices.
Actually, I want to know from Sophie, actually, how does it feel as a perfumer to constantly, I mean, you're being asked to make submissions for a brief, and a lot of them you presumably don't get, I mean, because so many perfumers have been briefed. How do you deal with that constant disappointment?
So it's part of the game. So we have a lot of adrenaline working on a project, winning the project, and we have to be resilient when we don't win the project. But it's part of the game, and really, I love my profession. I think we are super lucky to do this job of creation.
But anyway, the bottom line is that it wasn't like that with this creation.
No.
But I want to hear all about the inspirations behind Not Telling.
Oh God. For me, my inspirations sometimes start with conversations. It comes with different elements and fragments of my personal experiences from many, many things, you know. It can just be a conversation with someone that would trigger something. They say, oh, I should go towards this direction. Actually, it began, I think it was like 2 years ago. I had lunch with Michael Edwards. Some of you may not have heard of him. Maybe Joe can explain.
Michael he's an incredible authority on fragrance, global authority. He's written several books. One is Perfume Legends 1, Perfume Legends 2. I think he's just bringing out a book called, is it American Legends?
Yes.
So basically he delves into the history of some of the world's most iconic fragrances. And there are a few people in the world that know more about perfume than Michael does.
So I have always been obsessed. As a child of the 80s, I was obsessed with the 80s, and I think the 80s is back. I'm actually obsessed with maximalism. Some of you may know my work, you know, I don't play with minimalism, it's not my style. So I love the kind of vulgarity, the greed, and all that kind of big shoulder pads of powerhouses of the 80s. And one of the perfumes that was my childhood was Giorgio of Beverly Hills, okay? And I remember as a child, that perfume, many restaurants and public places used to ban it. There's a sign. So, one person, I didn't know much about it, so I had lunch with Michael, and I asked Michael. Michael gave me the whole history about it, and I was intrigued. I wanted to create the new Giorgio of 2024. So I brought that project, that discussion to Sophie. And I said, Sophie, what do you think? And she said, well, if I would do this project, and according to this brief, this is when we have input. It would be replica of Georgia Beverly Hills, and you don't want that. So Sophie did something that's really clever, okay? She actually fragmented it, dissected Georgia Beverly Hills into 8 different elements for me to study and to choose.
Which part was interesting for Christopher to work on, and we agree. And for me, you know, the 80s and Giorgio was really my teenage. It was really something very important as a fragrance, and so it was a very nice challenge for me to go back to this time and to recreate in a very contemporary way this amazing fragrance.
And also, right, this reason why I forced Sophie to read Judith Krantz' Scruples, okay? Because it was the most mentioned perfume in the book.
So I was really in the atmosphere of decadence, of audacity, but it's really what I love to, not the decadence, but the atmosphere, you know, the experiences to create. So it's very interesting because with Chris, he pushes the boundaries. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, basically, right? Yeah, I it's not just pushing the boundary. I like to give them the freedom. I like to give perfumers the freedom. That is what a good collaboration is. It's respecting each other's ideas and culture and just keep pushing it. And the key word is trust and encouragement.
And we were talking the other day about how the 80s was an incredible time of creative freedom, and actually people were given kind of free rein to create and not constrained in any way. And so did you go back, did you feel that you were kind of working in the spirit of the 80s with this fragrance?
No, because it was working in a very modern and innovative way. So we came up with the idea of working around the tuberose because it was what Giorgio was. And so we're starting to create together a very white flower.
We're going to, if you want to smell it while Sophie's talking, talk a bit about.
I have used 2 different qualities of tuberose, the infusion for the luminous and the fact that you can smell it from the beginning of the fragrance, and then the tuberose absolute, which has an animalic part, which is super sexy and audacious. So this is the whole fragrance. Thank you. But you feel this white flower from the beginning, and then this floral heart. I combine it with ylang ylang for the solar and the sunny aura of the flower. So you have this big heart of white flowers, and in a very modern way, because you have different qualities of this tuberose, the infusion and the absolute, which brings each something different. And then I wanted to bring some depth and some naughty things, thanks to Chris. So I worked on an accord of ambre gris, which is very sexy. It's like, you know, second skin with some salty note and also something very mineral and a lot of depth. So I added this accord ambre gris and also delicious ingredients and natural ingredients such as the vanilla absolute from Madagascar, which is very addictive, but not only, it's not sweet, it's like tobacco, it's like leather notes, it's smoky, and also the tonka-bean for its very almondy smoky note, very delicious too, and the creaminess of sandalwood to give this nice sillage to the whole fragrance. And then we really wanted to have a contrast on the top of this fragrance, so we played with a fraction of mandarin, very zesty. It's very sparkling and you know, mouth-watering also in the introduction of the fragrance. And so you have recognized it, the mandarin?
Sorry?
You had recognized the mandarin?
Yeah, no,
on the top of
we were
it?
just going, there's a fruity top of it, sherbety.
And
Yeah.
there's a special fruitiness that it's a peachy accord. So you have the
right,
lactonic, velvety apricot. You have the skin of this peach and also the flesh and coconut water.
I was going to say I got coconut and I thought I'm going mad.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I get a lot of coconut.
So it brings really something modern, contemporary, and bold compared to
And very luminous. It's
Yes.
got a lot of light in it. It smells to me. But I mean, what about the sillage? Because the thing about Giorgio and the thing about Poison and Opium and some of those amazing fragrances of their time is you know, they were so voluminous.
Yeah, sure. So the volume of not telling is very powerful. It's fragrance which is dosage at a high level, and also the ingredients that are in the fragrance are very long-lasting and powerful. See, the tuberose and the vanilla and the grey amber also that resonates in the whole fragrance, giving like a bones to the fragrance.
But how does the fruit come in? Because you do get that lingering bit of coconut.
So Joe's question was about the fruit and how that works, because there's such a kind of lingering impression of the coconut, just for those who couldn't hear the question at the back.
Thank you, sorry.
About the coconut?
Yeah.
So in order to, you know, when you smell the tuberose, you have this kind of notes in the tuberose. You have this creaminess, this milkiness. So I worked with other ingredients to emphasize this aspect, but in a fresh, also with a fresh feeling. I didn't want to have it sticky, so it's a coconut water blend with the peachy accord.
It's a play of word.
Yes, thanks. You can imagine what it could be.
Yes.
Actually, I want to know about how you two work together. I mean, you live in different cities, but how does the creative process between Sophie and Christopher unfold?
So we have some little messages on Instagram, on WhatsApp, and I went once or so, and you came also to Paris to select the different ideas. So we meet and we talk and we write.
Yeah, it's basically right. Yes, we meet up for lunch. We met up for dinner a few times in Paris. And then Sophie came to London last year, and we went on a little trip, which we're not telling. That's for 2 years later, and so we have that kind of a connection already. And basically, right, when I first met Sophie, we were both a bit hesitated a bit. We wanted to make sure that we'd be able to communicate with each other first. We didn't want to rush into it. That's why it took a year before we started working together, and then just happened by chance. I know the structure doesn't work like this. The corporate people wanted us to work together. They wanted to team us together. So they like a dating agency. But Sophie and I have our past history, so we were a bit more careful. We are older and more mature now. Okay, we basically we wanted to suss each other out first, you know, to see if we have the same language, to see if we have the kind of same emotions, just to build on that trust, not to rush into it, okay? So it took us 1 year of almost like dating.
So it's like a romantic approach with a pitchy accord.
Does that allow you then to, like, excuse my language, fuck with things? Because you're brilliant at twisting the way notes should work. Is that, by having this very intense relationship, does that allow you as a perfumer? Do you understand what I'm saying, Joe?
Yes, Joe is, sorry, for anyone at the back, Joe is pointing out that Christopher has a reputation for twisting and playing with classic ingredients and bringing something else out of them. And so I was actually, it leads into a question I wanted to know about, you know, how the 80s was your starting point.
Yes.
What is different about fragrance now compared to the 80s? So you had the tuberose of Giorgio, etc. What has modern perfumery or contemporary perfumery given you that you can work with that material and make it smell completely contemporary?
So the ambre gris accord, the naughty accord, is very different. And also this peachy note, which makes it really delightful. Also, when you I love the Giorgio, but when you smell it, you have some green notes, you have some notes that you probably have forgotten, and here it's really done in a very different way, more creamy, more also anchor with this ambre gris.
But for me, what is happening in perfumery at the moment, and I would almost call this a solar fragrance, because it has that shaft of sunlight in it, which when you go back and you smell those old 70s and 80s fragrances, they seem quite flat by comparison.
Yeah.
What enables you to add the sparkle in the sun and the sunlight?
Yeah, it's true. Here it's all about luminosity, light, and solar feeling. First with the heart of these white flowers, with the tuberose and ylang, and on the top of it, the mandarin fraction is really juicy, delicious, and really sparkle and fizzy. It really brings you to another dimension.
The question that I think all of us are fascinated by when in the process of fragrance creation is, how do you know when to stop?
Yeah.
How do you know that modification is the one? And how did that process unfold? How many mods did you do?
How many mods do you do?
I think...
More, come on. 6 figures.
Yes. No, not 6 figures, no, 2 figures. No.
2 figures.
No, around, I think 50, yes. Which is not that much, because Christopher knows exactly what he wants.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Basically, I think the number of mods is basically based on someone's ego sometimes, okay? Because I've done this many times already, that they think the more the better, okay? But with experience, you just know from a feeling, from a gut feeling, this is it. But then also from experience, from a technical angle, you know that formulation will go downward. If you go push it anymore, it won't go any further. It will just, you may have to go back to earlier mods. So you just know when to stop. It's a feeling.
So it's a kind of confidence of having done things for so long that you know that moment has come.
Yeah, and also as a perfumer, I'm a translator. So I translate what Christopher has in mind, what he wants to represent. So I know which modification I prefer, but it's like a ping pong.
Yeah.
It's important to have his intuition.
Well, the version that I would normally select, right, a perfumer or Sophie would probably have given me 4 or 5 more different mods of the same version, and I feel it's not going anywhere. That the differences is so minimum that the average nose will not be able to detect it. And then I say, if I push it anymore because of my own ego, making life difficult perfumer, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to take the formulation backwards. So it's based on experience, you just know.
And just for context, I have spoken to perfumers, and you might be one of them actually, Sophie, who have worked on as many as 5,000 modifications for sort of blockbuster scents from some of the big brands, etc. I'm curious to know always what other, we are creative people and we need inspiration. So where else, other than your palette of perfume ingredients, do you get your inspiration? How do you fill your creative well?
So I think we need to travel, for sure. Going to London, going to Brazil, going everywhere, and smelling. And also, I'm very curious about the food. I love also the food and the different combination. I love reading also. I think in reading you have a lot of nice description. At the beginning of my career, I really loved Colette and Pour un Herbier, and it was really my inspiration for the perfume I had mentioned at the beginning, because she was describing the gardenia in a beautiful way, like saying that it was like the green of a mushroom, and then the milky creamy part of a tuberose, but not yet as a tuberose. So I really love reading, And having experiences, I think it's really the beautiful part also of our profession, is that we are experiencing many, many things, and we can translate this into perfumes.
Christopher, how do you fill your creative well? I mean, there's music part of it. Do you spend time in nature, or is it exhibitions? Is it reading?
Well, I mean, like Sophie, I come from a literature background. I spent many years doing my first degrees. My degrees are in comparative literature, so I have almost like 10 years at the postgraduate studies in literature. So I have many references from that world, and I also come from a classical music background. So I drew a lot of references from classical music, but I found that are just hardcore references. I think the most important references to be creative, to stand apart, to have that authenticity, is to be able to listen to your experience, to share your own personal experience with your creation, to draw from yourself. That is when you reach the level where you are not imitating anyone or anyone trying to imitate you, because no one can be you. So that is where I'm drawing from. I draw a lot from my own personal experiences. I don't want to be precocious or obnoxious, say that I'm drawing from Proust and things like that, okay? Which I did last time. I drew from Handel, okay? Those who came to my... That's a bit precocious, actually. Obnoxious of me, arrogant, talking about Handel and Stanley Kubrick.
The fragrance is called Chords, to be fair, Christopher. I mean, it wasn't exactly out of context.
But that actually came from personal experience. I went to Handel House.
Yeah.
And whenever we discover, Handel's music, I wasn't always a huge fan of Handel's music, but it came from that personal experience. And so that is where I come from. I think I listen to my inner voice. Everything, forget about all these references. Everything for me begins with the feeling. That's how I started my career. Now I still do it. I listen to that feeling.
And you two apparently have some secret between you, but can I not persuade you to share this secret before we go into the question and answer section?
You go first.
I'm so curious.
Well,
They're just like, I'm not telling.
Well, basically, it's not fair because it basically is our past lives, and not the Netflix film, okay? It has to do with our past lives. We have moved on. We have moved on as different creative people. We finally found happiness in new homes that has given us that encouragement, love, nurturing, and freedom. Right? It's okay.
And it's the way we meet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Are you going to do another one together, do you think?
We are in the process.
Very good, very good. So, I don't know if we've got another mic for the